What would you do if your own parents saw you as nothing but spare parts? Sound of a heart monitor. Flash, a dim hospital room. Mileus lies in bed, bandaged, unmoving. Two shadowy figures, her parents, linger in the doorway. Their faces are hidden, their presence pulled. Would you beg for love? Would you fight to be seen? Or would you lie there, listening as the people who raised you tried to erase you piece by piece? My name is Mileus Olin, and this is the story of the night my family decided my life was worth less than my brother's next breath. They say childhood is where we first learn what love looks like, but for me, every memory felt like a faded photograph, one where I barely existed. Leor, my younger brother, was always the golden child. Every drawing he made went on the fridge. Every clumsy soccer goal got a celebration. And me? I was the extra, the afterthought, the burden no one wanted to carry. I remember birthdays, candles blown out with no song, gifts that never came, promises that vanished as quickly as they were made. If I brought home straight A's, there was a polite smile. If Leor passed a test, it was a family holiday. People think favoritism is obvious, loud, and cruel, but it's usually softer. A look, a shrug, a quiet dinner where no one asks about your day. It teaches you early. Sometimes the people who are supposed to see you just don't. I used to believe deep down that if I tried hard enough, I could earn their love. So I became the helper, the peacekeeper, the one who fixed what others broke. Sometimes I'd stay up late just to finish Leor's chores, hoping my mom might notice or my dad might thank me. They never did. Still, I kept trying. Little acts of rebellion grew in the shadows of my longing. I wrote secret notes to myself, promising that someday things would be different. Once I hid Leor's soccer shoes before his big game just to see if anyone would notice me instead. When the family panicked, I almost confessed, but then I saw my mother's worried face, and I felt only guilt, not victory. That's what favoritism does. It feeds hope with one hand and starves it with the other. You keep waiting for something to change, clinging to the dream that if you're good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, you'll finally matter. But the truth is chilling. No matter how hard I tried, reality never matched the hope I held on to. It was the kind of night where the world outside the car felt wild and unforgiving. Rain crashed against the windshield in furious sheets, the road ahead nearly vanishing between each swipe of the wipers. Leor was behind the wheel, knuckles tight on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched in frustration. I sat in the passenger seat, my hands fidgeting with my grandmother's old bracelet, the metal cool and grounding against my skin. We drove in silence at first, the tension thick enough to choke on. Leor broke it with a sigh, a mix of anger and exhaustion. "Mom thinks I should apply for that internship," he muttered, not looking at me. "Like that'll fix everything." I glanced at him, wanting to say something comforting, but the words got stuck. Our dreams and disappointments had become landmines. Anything I said would be wrong, or worse, ignored. The car filled with unsaid things. All the times I wanted to tell Leor how lost I felt, how much I wished things were different, but I stayed silent. Outside, the rain beat harder. Inside, it felt like neither of us truly belonged. One moment, I was staring at the endless blur of rain, lost in my thoughts. The next, everything exploded into color and noise, a flash of red lights. Screeching tires, a horn blaring loud enough to rattle my bones. Leor shouted my name. I felt the jolt, the car spinning metal screaming as we collided. Glass shattered in a spray of icy shards. Time seemed to stutter, stretching seconds into forever. For a split second, it was as if everything slowed down. I saw Leor's face twisted in panic, my own hands braced against the dashboard. The smell of gasoline, the sharp tang of fear. Then, blackness. My mind went silent, the world flickering out as my life hung by a single, fragile thread. No more rain, no more voices, just darkness, heavy, endless. I woke to harsh fluorescent lights glaring down on me. The room smelled like antiseptic and cold metal. Every part of me ached, my ribs burning, my throat dry, my skin prickling under stiff sheets. For a moment, I had no idea where I was. I tried to move, but pain flashed white-hot through my side. My lips parted, but all I managed was a broken, guttural sound. I turned my head, hoping to see a familiar face, a mother's hand, a father's gentle words, someone to tell me I was safe. But there was nothing. No one waiting, no one holding my hand. Only the relentless beep of machines counting every lonely heartbeat. I realized in that cold, sterile room that I was completely and utterly alone. I drifted in and out of sleep heavy with painkillers, the world around me blurry and distant. But then, voices, low, urgent, right outside my door. I barely had the strength to open my eyes, but their words sliced through the haze. "Doctor, if we take her other kidney, will it save Leor?" A cold pause. "She wouldn't survive that," the doctor replied quietly. My mother's voice flat, emotionless. "Leor has a future. She's just a burden anyway. This would be her contribution." Then my father, calm as ever, "Take her organ. Save our son." I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Tears slid silently down my cheeks, mixing with the sweat on my pillow. The people who were supposed to protect me, they were bargaining away my life. I lay frozen, every muscle locked with fear. I wanted to scream, to beg them not to do it, but my body wouldn't listen. Even my voice was trapped like the rest of me. A wave of helplessness washed over me. How did I end up here? Powerless, voiceless, nothing but a body in a bed. Memories crashed over me, sharp and bitter. Every time I'd cleaned Leor's messes so he wouldn't get in trouble. Every chore I did alone. Every secret I kept. Every smile I forced so our family could stay together. All those sacrifices. Not once did anyone thank me. Not once did anyone notice. Now, when I needed them most, I realized all along I was only ever the backup plan. The fear was suffocating, not just of dying, but of being erased so easily, as if I never mattered at all. Somewhere beneath all the fear, a spark flickered small but fierce. I thought, if I survive this, I will never be their burden again. I won't let them erase me. Not ever. I clung to that promise even as the pain threatened to swallow me whole. That evening, when I was at my lowest, a nurse came in. Her name was Isolde. She didn't rush. She didn't look through me like I was invisible. She sat down at my bedside, her eyes kind and steady. She took my hand, warm and gentle, and whispered, "You matter. Don't let anyone take that from you, not even family." In a world full of betrayal, that simple kindness was enough to keep my hope alive. Sometimes all it takes is one person to remind you you're not as alone or as powerless as you think. The next morning, while the halls were still quiet, I waited for a moment when no one else was around. Isolde came in to check my IV, her presence calm and reassuring. I swallowed hard, heart pounding, and whispered, "Can I talk to someone? A social worker. I don't feel safe here." She didn't look surprised. She just nodded, squeezing my hand gently. "I hear you, Mileus. You're not alone. I'll make sure you get the help you need." For the first time since the accident, I felt like maybe, just maybe, someone was truly on my side. Not long after, I asked for help. The quiet of the ward was shattered by shouting. I heard my mother's voice first, sharp, furious. "She's my daughter! You can't keep me away!" Security stood firm, blocking the doorway. My father's voice, cold and commanding, rose above the noise. "We have a right to see her! Let us in!" From my bed, I could see it all through the small window in the door. My parents' faces twisted in anger, their hands banging against the glass. The nurses and staff gathered nearby, tense but unmoving. I watched as my mother's desperation turned to rage, her mask slipping, revealing a side I'd always felt but never seen so clearly. In that chaos, something inside me settled. Their true colors weren't love or concern, just control and fear of losing it. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid of them. I just felt free. I was discharged the next morning. No family, no flowers, no warm welcome home. Just a small plastic bag with my paperwork and my grandmother's silver bracelet inside. I stepped out into the daylight, the air cold and sharp against my skin. The hospital doors slid shut behind me, sealing off everything I used to know. With every step toward the bus stop, reality settled in. I was alone. No money, nowhere to go but transitional housing. The walk there felt endless. Each street unfamiliar, every face a stranger. By the time I reached my tiny room, a bed, a window, a single lamp, exhaustion hit me like a wave. That first night, lying in the dark, fear crept in. The world was silent, and so was I. But beneath the fear was something new, a fragile, stubborn hope. For the first time, my life belonged only to me. The nights were the hardest. Lying in a bare, unfamiliar room, the thin blanket did nothing to keep out the cold. Sometimes my stomach ached with hunger, but what hurt more was the emptiness inside me, the echo of every word I wished I'd heard, every hug I never got. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the city's distant noises, wondering if anyone would notice if I just disappeared. Doubt crept in, slow and heavy. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe I really was a burden, just taking up space, destined to fail on my own. There were moments alone at midnight, cold, lost, and hungry, when I almost let go, when giving up seemed easier than holding on. But even in those darkest hours, some tiny spark refused to die, a whisper that said, "Not yet, not tonight." When it felt like I had nothing left, I found a job cleaning a bookstore at night. It wasn't glamorous. The pay was barely enough for groceries, but it was mine, earned with my own hands. I swept dusty floors, wiped fingerprints off display cases, and stocked shelves long after the customers had gone home. Every dollar I made went into a jar under my bed. Every coin was a promise to myself I would never beg my family for help. During breaks, I borrowed the store's old computer, signing up for online classes, one small lesson at a time. My fingers fumbled over the keyboard, but with each passing day, I learned a little more. Every tiny step forward, a past quiz, a full week of work, a meal paid with my own money, felt like a quiet rebellion, proof that I could build a life without them. It wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, but with each small victory, I was stitching myself back together. Piece by piece, I was learning to be strong. Not because I never fell, but because I kept standing up. Some days, it was a kind word from a stranger that kept me going. A regular at the bookstore once noticed my tired eyes and said, "You're doing great. Don't give up, okay?" It was simple, but it felt like the universe reminding me I mattered. On my loneliest nights, I would hold my grandmother's silver bracelet in my palm. I remembered the warmth of her hands, her voice telling me, "This will protect you. You are stronger than you think." That little piece of silver became my anchor, a reminder that I came from love, even if my parents never showed it. With every challenge I survived, with every small win I claimed for myself, I felt a new strength growing inside me. I looked in the mirror for the first time in years and said out loud, "I am not their burden. I am my own beginning." Years passed, and my life became something I had built with my own hands. Then, one ordinary morning at the office, an email popped up in my inbox. Subject line, "Application for Junior Analyst Leor Olan." My heart skipped. Leor, my brother. The golden child, now just another name in a stack of resumes. When he arrived for the interview, I barely recognized him. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes tired and searching. Gone was the boy who always believed the world would bend for him. He sat across from me, fidgeting with his hands. For the first time, he looked lost, desperate, defeated. He didn't know the company was mine. Not yet. Leor sat across from me, nervously glancing at my nameplate. His voice was small, nothing like the brother I once knew. "Please," he said quietly, I really need this job, Elias. Things haven't been easy. I'm not who I used to be." I watched him searching for the brother I once loved, and for a moment I saw only the child we both used to be. But I remembered every scar, every sacrifice, every time I was made to disappear so he could shine. My tone was gentle but unbreakable. "You know, Leor, this company wasn't built for people like you. It was built to protect people from families like ours, people who have been discarded, people who deserve to be seen." Leor looked down, shoulders trembling. For the first time, he seemed to understand. I stood my ground. I would not be exploited again. My story would not be rewritten, not by him, not by anyone. In that moment, I realized the tables had turned. For so long, my life had been dictated by my family's choices, by their approval, their neglect, their demands. But now the power was in my hands. Leor waited, shoulders hunched, afraid to look at me. He expected anger or revenge, maybe even pity. Instead, I stood up, meeting his eyes one last time. "I hope you find your own way, Leor," I said softly. "But you can't do it here, not at the expense of those we promised to protect." He nodded, silent tears in his eyes. As he walked out the door, I felt the last ties of the past loosen and fall away. I wasn't rejecting him out of spite. I was setting myself free. For the first time in my life, I got to choose, and I chose myself. One afternoon, as autumn light spilled across my apartment floor, I found a letter in my mailbox. The handwriting was unmistakable, my mother's. The words inside were desperate, slanted, written in a hurry. "We're losing the house. Leor can't find work. We need your help." "You're still our daughter, aren't you?" I stood at the counter, the letter trembling in my hands. 100 memories flashed through my mind. Every cold shoulder, every forgotten birthday, every moment I was invisible. I picked up my pen, and for the first time, I wrote only for myself. "I was your daughter when I was lying helpless in a hospital bed. You chose, Leor. Now live with your choice." I sealed the envelope, dropped it in the mailbox, and as the flap closed, a weight lifted from my shoulders. This was not vengeance. It was closure. I was finally free. Time moved on, and with it, so did I. One morning, an email arrived from Tacoma General Hospital. They were launching a new patient protection policy designed to ensure that no one could ever be forced into medical decisions against their will, even by family. They named it the Claire Olin Protocol. Seeing my new name, my chosen name, at the top of that document, I realized my pain had become a shield for others. Now I volunteer at the hospital mentoring young people who feel lost and unwanted kids whose families have tried to break them. One afternoon, I sat beside a girl with haunted eyes and shaking hands. She stared at her IV, voice barely a whisper. "I don't think I matter to anyone." I smiled softly, placing my grandmother's bracelet on her wrist for a moment. "You matter," I told her, steady and true. "You have the right to write your own story." Her tears fell, but so did her fears. I became what I always needed: a witness, a protector, a new beginning for others and for myself. As dawn broke over Commencement Bay, I stood at the waterfront, the sky painted in gold and lavender. The silver bracelet, the one my grandmother gave me, gleamed in my hand, warm from my grip. I closed my eyes, letting the salty air fill my lungs. Every scar, every sleepless night, every betrayal had brought me here. Pain had been my prison, but it became my power. I am not their burden. I am not their mistake. I am the author of my own story. They thought my story ended in that hospital bed, I whispered to the rising sun, but I'm just getting started. For the first time, I breathed freely, unafraid, unbroken, and entirely my own. Life isn't always fair. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But pain, no matter how sharp, doesn't have to define your future. You have the right to set boundaries, to choose yourself, and to write your own story. Even when you feel powerless, remember your worth isn't determined by anyone else's love, approval, or neglect. The most powerful freedom comes when you decide to reclaim your life, to transform your wounds into wisdom and your scars into strength. Never be ashamed of surviving. Never apologize for protecting your peace. You are not a burden. You are a beginning. If this story moved you or made you think about your own journey, please subscribe to Pieces of Soul. Let's build a community where every story matters and every voice is heard. Hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts in the comments, and join us for more real-life stories that heal, inspire, and empower.